And I'm live. That is pretty cool. Today is 15th of February 2026, Sunday. And let's begin program. And right now I am not able to work on this project of string because I was doing something else. But now um, I guess I would be able to give it more time, and which is like of course required, right? Okay, so what we have now is this. We have a function, we have to implement this function. We have this function run game, which takes the ID and WebSocket for white user and for black user, and the time that the game should last, and the increment after each player moves, right? Time increment. And we just have to write down this function. That is all for now. When back, we can even test this, which is cool. We should test this. Where is postman? Here is postman. And yep, let's start a connection with this. And error, because there is an error, because the we have to log in again. I suppose body for user 42 login, we got the new key. And for user 37, if we log in, we got a key. And we can go, first of all, let's copy this token. It has XA at the end. Then parameters, no, not parameters. Headers will have this token. It had XA at the end, and this also has XA, so this should work. Okay, we do have one connection, and for the next one, and that one had XA at the end. This one does not have XA, so this is the other token. Cool, this one is connected. This one is not connected. Let's connect. Okay, and connected, and yep, user this wants to play a game and user this wants to play a game, and they are playing a game with each other. Cool. And yep, we just have to implement that function. And also let's check a few other things. If this one wants a different increment, then these two players won't be able to play with each other. Let's say this one wants an increment of 1 and the other player, kill this and don't save. Yep. And then the player does not want an increment, so they, how did we start a game? Increment here was 0, and here the increment is also 0. Okay, everything is disconnected. Start the server. Cool. Here increment is 1. Right. Okay, here increment is 0, so that is wrong. Why are we reading the increment wrong? APIs start game. Yep. Save bars, headers, from headers. Yep, headers. Yep, we are not reading increment correctly. Why are we not reading increment correctly? Parameters INCREMENT, and in Zod also. Read Zod game INCREMENT words this thing into a number, and here we are legit giving increment as well. Why don't we receive it on the other side also as well? If we change disconnect. Yes, we also have to say that if a connection disconnects, then remove it from the list of all the games that are currently playing. Yep. Yes, that is one point of failure. I need to make this 10 and increment also 10 and connect now. Okay, we are starting a game somehow with the time as 600. The time is not changing somehow. Yep, time is somehow fixed to be 600. How? Because they are being sent in headers and not in parameters. My bad. Shit. Hit bulk. Disconnect. Yep. These are supposed to be sent in headers, not in parameters here. So now stop server, start server. And if we say increment is supposed to be 1, 0, 1, 1, connect here, increment is 1. Cool. And if we start another game from some other user who wants a different increment amount, let's say 0, then they won't be able to play a game with each other because the increment doesn't match. Cool, cool. And yep, there are like some obvious mistakes. That is, what should we do if a connection closes? We do have a function for what should happen if a connection opens. What should happen if a connection closes? Takes in values and implements the function. Okay, we should have a function which takes in a WebSocket connection and deletes that connection. Like here we have data.adding. Have we should have a function that takes in required information and removes this WebSocket from wherever it is, and also a function which checks the same user is not creating multiple WebSockets so that a single user is not able to play multiple games at the same time, which does not make sense because if a single user was able to play multiple games at the same time, they would be able to play a game with themselves, which is bullshit. But we do not have a fast way of looking up through an object. This would be very slow. This would actually be very slow. This would be very slow. Yep. This would be very slow. We essentially have a list of WebSockets. We essentially have a list of WebSockets, and now our task is to remove a WebSocket from that list, for which we have to find that WebSocket first of all, which will take an n time, and then removing it is in itself takes n time. So whenever a game ends, it is going to go through all the games. Whenever a user disconnects, it is going to go through all of the games there are, which is not very good, which is not very good. So we need something else. And also there is the fact that if a user disconnects and reconnects, will they be able to pick up their game where they left? Because you might have bad internet and your connection got closed. Well, not right now. No, the game would end in the middle. No, the game would end in the middle right now if that were to happen. And game this thing. I think we have to refactor our data structure this time. Yep, we do have to refactor our data structure. There is no way to get to a game object. Yep, there is no way to get to a game object. And what is a game object? User game object. This thing, which is the user ID, username, and a WebSocket object. There's no way to get to this thing. No way to get to this thing using, if we have the WebSocket, the only way we can do this is by going through all the whole list, which is not very convenient, which is, yep, not very convenient. Yep, which is not very convenient. User ID, username, Lewis. Yep, yep, we have to find a better way. This is not convenient. This is actually pretty slow. Going through a list to find a thing, and there is also no sorting, so that we will not be able to use binary search here. And now the question also comes down to, do we need to save time here? And I think yes, we do, because there are going to be some formats of game like rapid 10 minutes with zero increment, for which there might be a lot of games. Okay, let's realistically, how many games there going to be? Let's say there are 1 million rapid games, and also 1 million rapid games means 2 million connections. So if a single user disconnects, then the JavaScript will have to go through all of these 2 million users to find the correct WebSocket. And also, since WebSocket is an object, we would not be comparing a number with another number. We would be comparing a heavy object with another heavy object. This thing. And this does look heavy. And yet we can make a your mama joke here. But this is going to be slow. Going through 2 million items to find one item. And okay, in general, when we do have a list of things, one way of reducing time for search process from O of n, which we currently have, to something that is faster, like log n, O of log n, is by having this thing sorted beforehand and then doing a binary search. But since this is a list of objects, this is a list of objects, but also this object has other properties like username. Shit. Like username and user ID, using which we can sort the whole list and boom, yes, shit. So we can have this thing sorted. And if we want this thing sorted, so we will not keep this as a list, we will store this as a heap, not as a heap, as a set, sorted set, like in C++, we have ordered set, yes. We will store this thing as a set. Cool. And the key would be user ID, which is unique. Username is also unique, but we will use user ID because a person can change their username in the future. Cool. Cool, cool. So here, this thing here, this is not going to be a list, but this is going to be a set type for fast lookup. And how can we do this in JavaScript? In Java, if I want to have a list of objects where is an ID key in each object. I want fast insertion and and deletion from this. I want fast insertion and deletion from this object. Having a simple array is slow. Do we have something like a set in C++? Something similar to set in C++? Okay, the right question. Fast insertion and deletion objects with an ID. You are already thinking in the terms of data structure, not syntax. Okay, you are frequently insertion and deletion, frequently search by ID, O of n, find, splice. Array is slow. This is not JavaScript problem. That is just how arrays work. The tool is map. We can use a map. Okay, the closest thing to C++. Unordered or ordered map would also be ordered map in this case would be better because we do not have to do any hashing. Hashing is slow. Yep. Insertion O often constant time, deletion constant time, lookup constant time, but yep, the same thing. What about set? JavaScript also has set, but set stores whole objects. Compare object identically referenced, not by ID. This will not work the way you expect. Add this has this false. Okay, because this thing stores the objects themselves. So even if I am comparing the object which have the same things, they are physically not in the same memory space. Okay, so set unless okay, and what about plain object? You could we could also do this as object constant ID. This also gives near constant time, but map is much better because keys can be anything, not just strings. No prototype pollution because maybe the basic sets have the basic objects have prototypes, which they do have. Use only curly braces only if you absolutely care about minimal overhead. If you need ordering plus fast lookup map, wait, then you combine a map and a list. What do you mean by that? Or just use map alone? It prevents insertion order. C++ behavior. Wait, but then the question is, uh, map uses hashing, which can be slow if the number of items is going to be not greater than 1e6. So do you have something like a red black tree in JavaScript? Do you have a red black tree? No. Okay, asymptotic, not just APIs. Hashing can be slow if items is for modern JavaScript engine v8 mapped with 1.6 is absolutely fine. Hash tables operations are optimized. Red black tree log n. I think log n is much faster than a hashing would be, but okay. The real question, you nearly need a red black tree. You only need a red black tree if you require ordered iteration by key range queries. Find all IDs between 1000 and 2000. I will use map. We will use map in that case. That would be cool. And yep, stuff is audible and that is pretty cool. Okay, so let's switch this to a map where the ID would be ID, where the key would be the ID and the object would be something else. Okay. Export map type. How do we give type of a map? We can just look it up. MP equals map uh hello, and key is like hi. Holy shit, it does not work. New is declared empty dot in has set key in on and hello, what is the type of this map? Type any. Okay, nope, that is not working. Type string. String is that okay? That's not okay. Only references. This string we give a string here as well. Yep. And if we were to say something else here, then error. Cool. So here, game user object is going to be a map. Game user object map, and here we will say this equals, so instead of interface, this can be a type of map string is the key, and the value is user ID string and PW. And you will solve it. Identify expected, that is a bit messed up. Export interface user game, the game that is played by the user game. Will have user ID, which is going to be a string, and yeah, WebSocket. This thing requires not this, but username and identify expected where. Yeah, true. And this thing will not have a list, but this will have a user game object map. And that sounds dope. Okay. User game object map. Can you even say user ID here? No, we cannot. Fine. Okay, everything now here is messed up. User game object map. User game object map. Cannot find user queue object. Queue object is fine. User game object. Okay, yes. Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. We have changed this type. There's a lot of type thing going on. User game object map. Uh, we need to fix the names. These names are not making any sense. User game, what is user data? User data makes sense, a bit of sense. User game, what is user game? This has user ID, and shit, why does it have user ID? Should I use that? Not user ID. Export type user game object map types of map string user game type of map string user game. Then we have changed. Yeah, we have to change the name. Everything that is related to a user begins with the word user, and everything that has to do with game begins with the word game. Game, game object map, game object, game object queue, game object map, and user interface operators. Game object. Game. Okay. And here game object map. That makes sense. Everything that begins with game has to do with game. Everything that begins with user has to do with user. Okay. And import here game object queue. Yep. And initialize everything to be equal to 0. And to be a empty object. And wait, since we are doing this, we don't even have to use a record here. We can say map. Map, and we can even here use map directly if you want to game object map. First key comes here, the second one goes down, cool color, and the second is this whole. And for the internal map, string is the first key, and the value is a map of a string which maps to game object. Yes. Okay. And now this is messed up. This has to be a map. Or the label may only specify properties as color does not exist. So okay. Changing that to a record makes sense. Still, we will have to use those types here. But the last thing can be that user game object, game object. Append type game game object refers to a value. And also this will take add game. This will take in user ID. User ID, you can use this will take it separately if it is already in game queue color time key. If time key is yes, we are checking here. This yep, that cannot be. Here we'll have to say in this case new map. of string to game object. So dot push is not good. Dot set is a thing. Object is possibly undefined. We'll possibly do it. And user cool. User ID game object color time increment. Here also set get game. We do not get a game by user ID. Dot pop does not make sense here, but time key dot get does make sense here. Dot values, what does this return? Map material returns an iterable of values in the map. Get this and go to this. If this is like C++, but this is not like C++. So what is returned by this anonymous map iterator object? How do we get a value through a iterator like that? How do we get value of an iterator? How to get value of an iterator and JS map, JavaScript map. Dot next. Let's say we have a map like this. How to get a random value? How to get random? How to get a random value from a map in JS? Not random, just any value at all. Get random value map dot size is equal to this. Then this dot values convert maps to an array. Dot values random and then index. Okay. You don't want to make a list out of this. How to get a random item? How to get any from a map in JS without the key, just any value at all. Nope, without the get key. Just practices. Nope. First check and then get. How to get any value from the map at all without which without any key or you want to give me a value from a map. I don't care which key. Yep, the direct way would be to get values dot next dot value returns an iterator dot next gives value and done. This is constant type dot next dot value and is not following. This thing returns game object or undefined without any time wastage. Const time key. Get time key. Yep, get time key and is game. If there is no game, then game not found error. Oh, yep, cool. So what this does is, yeah, now we can add a function which removes again. Static remove game. Now what is required? Color. It's a tag color. User ID. User ID is going to be required, is will be required. Color of type color, time of type number, and increment of type number. Cool. So get a game, and this will just remove the game. But do we have to do a check like this? Let's see. We do. The game is not there, then do this error, and then this dot game key for this color for this time key dot slash question mark dot set has clear delete true if an item is in the map exists has been removed, or false if the item does not exist. Clear clears the map, I think. As get set, do we have to set the thing as adds a new element? Get has key has check this. We will first check if the element is there or not. So if has, then we will remove start game queue hello time key dot time key dot clears the whole thing. Boolean returns true if an element in the map existed and has been removed. Okay, let's delete user ID. Delete this user ID, and what is it return? Executes are provided once per key qualifier in the insertion order. Wait, there is also example shell matters. Cool. If an element in the map existed and has been removed, or false if the element does not exist. And if this thing happened correctly, then true. This will always return true. This doesn't even have to return anything. Okay. This will be used on the API side start game. Yep, function signatures have changed. User game object is not a thing anymore. Lead game let current player equals user game object. Nope, we can remove user ID, and we can here say const current user ID, which is a string, is equal to ws dot data dot user if it does exist dot user ID. The string undefined is not assignable. Okay, shit. If this thing does it this will exist, like yes, of course. But if this thing does exist, then use this thing ws dot data dot user ID. Otherwise use ID. Game object. Here's the current user ID, and here const create name. Yeah, think I should also write comments. Writing comments is like not my faith. Okay, writing comments makes sense. It reminds me what I'm doing. Get user Get current user info, not get, but establish current user info, and here nah, comments are overrated. Okay, then after this, some random logging, and I really don't like this plugin. It was tree sitter object, I think. Text objects, no, it was new LSP tree sitter context. Yep, remove this plugin. That would be nice. Or remove this whole thing. Lazy, lazy, clean. Yeah, now we do not have that longer, which is a bit better. Okay, after getting the current user data, create game Zod. Yeah, get create game information. Then, yep, check for errors. And then when we know that the current user has given us correct information about how to create a game, and there are two times this thing is being returned if either we do not parse or if the color is out of range. And now this is random count. Get opponent gives me opponent, and when I have the current player and the opponent player, we decide who plays white and who plays black, and then we run the game. But here we also have add game. Yep. Now we have different kind of data structure and also close. When a web circuit closes, we will remove that. Yeah, we will remove data dot, and where is user ID? Const user ID is ws of data dot user ID, and this thing will exist. If this thing does exist, then you data dot wait. If we can here, I think if this thing is true, then take this. Otherwise, if that is false, then take this. What would be the consequences of? Can we be always sure that we always have user ID? Yes, when we are closing the connection, we only made the connection when if we did have user ID. So cool. User ID. Okay, we have user ID and we need to delete data dot remove game, and this takes us to user ID, color of the current user, which comes from headers, which is messed up. Shit, I think we should add we did all of this to get the color, time, and increment. Maybe if we are going to get the color, time, and increment multiple times, we can make this a function that takes in the WS and gives us back the color time and increment. Parser helpers. Request parsing helpers.ts. It is already in the helpers folder, so request parsing. Request.data.headers. Yep. Shit. Import, create, game, load, and const parse game create. A parse game create. That is good enough. And this thing takes in WS, which is Elysia website. Cannot find name WS. Why can you not find name WS? Shit. Property address does not exist on type this. Why would this not exist on type this? As color type and everything. Okay, shit. If there was some error in passing, then return null. If there was not, then return the things which were asked for, color, time, and increment color type. What is color type? We have to import color enum, not from one. Import as color type and create game as create game. Create game, I think, doesn't exist anywhere at this point. Create game does exist somewhere. Create game is our type and headers does not exist on this. Why does header not exist on this? This is the whole type. Wait, I have to go to washroom and I will be right back in 1 minute. And yep, I'll be right back in 1 minute. Wait. And I'm back. That is good. Okay. Constant time fetching and removing. Okay. This WS has a different type than the base WS, and why do I want to create a different function for parsing when we already have the parsing logic here using Zord in the API itself, because there are multiple places where I want to parse. Yep, there are multiple places where I want to parse. Maybe there is a general solution. I don't have to like invent everything. Maybe there is a general solution for this. Uh, there are multiple API endpoints which require the require same body, which require the same body and with the same parsing method using Zord, and thus the same parsing method using Zord, but I cannot write a or but write a separate function for parsing the body is not straightforward in PS because the base body doesn't have the expected body type which those endpoints have. I am using Elysia and I am modifying the body with dot resolve method. Let's see. Of course, this is not a Zord problem. Multiple endpoints, same. Yep, validate Zord. You modify with using resolve TypeScript complaints because the body does not match the type yet. This happens because TypeScript types are static, but resolve transforms the body at runtime. TS doesn't automatically understand the transformation unless you structure it correctly. The core problem in Elysia: use a plugin, not a random function, because only a plugin participates in Elysia's type system, and a random function would not be able to know. Okay, plugin. Clean solution, shared plugin with resolve. Define schema once. Defined, already ready. Create a reusable plugin. New elysia.body parse with this and return with this. Okay, plugin. Okay, they are doing the parsing in this thing itself, which is more interesting, which is pretty interesting, which is actually pretty interesting. This thing could be a plugin in itself. Makes so much sense. This actually makes so much sense. Legit. Glaze.data.headers. Yep, it does. Helpers. Yeah. Plugins dot things and not just this helpers plugin. And this here, there is going to be a base class which is imported by all the Elysia objects. Yep, and that base Where is that base class middleware? Yes, middleware is that base class, which is imported by start game here. Yep, auth plugin from middlewares. Auth plugin. So auth plugin can be imported by other Elysia plugins. Okay, shit. Yes. So inside APIs, we can have a folder called plugins, and middleware can go there. Auth.ts is import JWT duplicate found in directory payload export auth plugin. Cool. And actually, nothing breaks here. Middleware, we can just delete this middleware thing here, and auth plugin should not be accessible now. Import auth plugin middleware does not exist any longer. Okay. Create odd and everything like that. Go here, and here we can say game endpoint plugins, game API plugins. APIs which are related to games, and shit, I missed time. I didn't. Cool. All of this that will go into game plugins. Uh, import of plugin, not twice, only single time, and or export const auth, not auth plugin. What should be the name of this plugin? Game create game create plugin. Yep, equals auth plugin dot resolve. Yes. How does the normal what works? Because this, and it takes in headers and updates the headers. Yeah, we can just put everything in the headers itself again, and the data would be in the headers. Yes, and so we can take the headers directly. But is there a way by which we can return error from the resolve method here using resolve and for type casting the headers? Can I return some error, or return some response in case of some error directly to the user? Yes, but not the way probably you are imagining. Resolve actually just does this and nothing else. What if validation fails? Option 1, throw an error, which is recommended. If we throw an error, what will happen? And in Elysia define what happens if an error is thrown. Okay, shit, that makes sense. From resolve, we can throw an error, and we will have a global method of resolving an error, which will just Respond, give a response back to the user with the error. Okay, cool. Error message, error status code. Throw new error with this message and a return token. Otherwise, if there is no error. Okay, cool. Use before handle, and that is, I think, much better because from before handle we can whatever we do return that. Yes, so I guess we should use both before handle and resolve. Before handle and resolve, yes. On before handle, this takes in headers, put all this here, create game, in create game Zod and so wait shit dot send. No, does WS exist? No. We can take in headers and directly parse them, and in case of errors, since this is an HTTP request sent to main, sent to establish a connection, we will not let this establish if the headers are not present properly. Cool. So in case of this, I think to send errors, we can here set, yep, set invalid parameters, invalid header error code. There is no error code like such. Invalid error code generic message occurs and ways. Ah shit. 400 bad request. Okay. This expression is not callable. Shit. Set status. Set its status to 400 and do not close because we cannot close. Error true. Message is pro. Message is this thing exact. Return this up and for returning status will be 400. Elysia plugins are cool. Okay. This is checking for the headers, which tells us which game the user wants to play. As create game. We should probably change this to game create because this is related to game, and here this to game create Zod. Game create Zod, and go into this file, and here also make the change game create Zod, go back, game create Zod, game create game Zod, change that also game create Zod, and why do you expect? Okay, as create game. No, game create. Okay. Then, this much is good enough. Export this. Create game. Create game is a type and must be imported as a type. Okay. Yo, hello. Finally started working on VM project once again. Let's go. And how is your backend? Like, if you are still here, how what does the backend do that you created? And yep, is it online? Can I hit some APIs using my Postman locally? Okay, return this. Yep. Else, cannot find WS. Do not look for WS. Then this and for that, status will be set to 400. And what is color type? That is a cool question. Include colors, one and color type, time increment, and nothing is being yet. Shit. Yes. After this validation, we have to go use a resolve. And before handle written this, but resolve. I guess using both is fine. Using on before handle and then for validation and response sending and then using resolve for body type update works fine, but we have to do the same thing to the separation is clean and architecturally correct. We're essentially doing before handle validation plus possible exit, early exit, and then resolve for type save. That is the right mental model. Okay, that is cool. Why this works? Why this separation is good engineering. Okay, one important detail: if you are validating headers and before handle and passing them again and parsing them, yep, you are doing it. Yes, that was the downside of this. Attach parsed headers for later. That is much better. Headers dot parsed equals parsed dot data, and then get those headers here and update that. Which is cool, which is cool. After this, dot resolve. Yep. And here what you do is headers dot data equals color time in increment is not assignable. What does that mean? We are adding a new property dot parse attached, but this is TypeScript. It does not allow me to do this. Nice. It doesn't allow me to do this dipshit. Yep, it doesn't allow me to do this with any key. But this is where TypeScript is doing its job and refuting some unsafe. The line that fails is this. Why? Because headers is typed in Alicia as a specific read-only structure. You cannot arbitrarily mutate it. TypeScript is correct. So the problem is not validation. The problem is where you are storing the data. Why you should not mutate headers. Framework on okay pattern recognition before enter. You want the parsed value available here later. You must attach it to something. Headers, no validation, inside resolve and throw. Okay, do not use before handle and use resolve for validation and throw from inside resolve and have a on error thing, or use derive instead of manual mutation. Shit, I wanted to use on before, but I guess we cannot. Like, why are you saying sorry? You don't have to. Yep, about the backend, it is just a basic temporary storing kind of like a Redis. Like you can write a piece of code like kind of GitHub gists, and you can share the link. The people can see that is cool. Wait, but how does your backend do that? For that, you also have to write a front end, right? The client who takes data from the backend and shows it in some pretty format. You can also add a password to encrypt it. Okay, select TTS or TTL, whatever it is, and such. Apart from code, plain text, MD, etc. You can also upload images, use up to 20 MB. I use Google Storage API for the image storage. You can also add a password to the image to back. Yep, you have to write a front end. I cannot decide on. Yep, front end. I was thinking of just giving Capuchin mock. Okay, you are worried about the theme of the front end, I guess. So uh, which front end framework are you using? You were once talking about a framework. Frameworks for web development. There was shit. There was a cool frame Solid.js. I think you were saying Solid.js is cool, but I cannot decide on how the front end UI should look like. Once that is done, it will be online. Let's go. It will be online. I would be able to copy this, send it on your website, and give you the link. And you will be able to give links here. All no, you cannot give links. React with Astro or probably Solid.js or Astro. Okay, shit, we cannot use on before handle here because we would be parsing the same thing twice. Redundancy is what they call it. Can we get the status? Let's get status. We can set the status from here directly. If no success, enum is declared, but its value is never used. Why is it? Why is it? Does this work? No, it does not. Return user. Yeah, this color should be color as color type, and that does work. Cool. Okay. Color in. Wait, shit. Okay, so color done. Cool. Headers status being used. here. Okay, in case of error, this is not what we want. Yep, this is not what we want. We want to throw an actual error. Can we give this error, this thing, this object? No, no, shit. We can only give a string to an error and not an object. Maybe we can stringify this object and then parse this on the error side, but yeah, I guess stringify is cool. And just we'll send this as a string itself. Cool. And something similar do here. Okay. And we are doing this on top of auth plugin. On top of auth plugin is here. And yes, we would have to do the same thing in auth plugin also. So we should have a not a plugin, but yeah, we should have a plugin that will be called a plugin. Error plugin on top of error plugin. Error plugin will return to the user error if there is some error in parsing the body which is sent by the user. So Alicia and error plugin is yeah, object dot error handle error, and how do we write error on error and just error. Yeah, we will take an error on error message is something that we get. No, that is not. No, the message does not exist. So what exists? Error exists. So the status to be 400 and return. Yep. Error true and message dot message. Property does not exist. Might exist. Error dot message show. Why does the property not exist? So what are the properties which exist on state? What is the type of error? Then nothing exists on this error type. That's good. This error and our game API plugin will be built on top of this error plugin which will be built error plugin. Or first should rename this or plugin. And your path plugin is equal to this. And instead of building this on top of a base LEG object, we will build this in on top of the error plugin. Error plugin. Ooh, error plugin, and we can use resolve here. Hello, happy Maha Shivratri. Since frontend is not my primary goal now, I won't be learning new frameworks like Svelte. That is cool. Will you give today's contest? I guess not. I will be giving contests when I know that I'm like good enough to give contests. And before that, I will be giving virtual contests. So, and the most fun part was generating the slug. What is slug? Slug Terra. Also, the documentation for PostgreSlib is non-existent, and I think there is. I mean, maybe you are doing more than I did, but I was able to find good enough stuff. It just doesn't even exist. I had to read the source code. Okay, yeah, maybe that is a overkill. Reading source code. Yeah, we will not have on before handle. We will not have on before handle. We will just have resolve. Resolve take in header, and this if headers is equal to undefined, then throw error. Throw error. Okay, throw error. Status. No, We we are not worried about the status. Throw new error. Errors are absent. Token, get the token. Yep, that is cool. If token does not exist and we are doing this on something that we don't even know if it exists or not. And if it does not exist, then this will just throw an error which will be handled by Elijah. Cool. That is fine. If no token, then again, throw new error. Throw new error. Error is no or token given in giving errors. Okay. And then try to verify this thing. You don't have to try, you can just verify that thing. Error will be handled automatically. And after verifying, once what's this? And then return user. That looks much cleaner. We can even give the type of this res here, no problem. JWT payload. And that must have broken quite a few things. Auth plugin and error plugin is the base. On top of which we have the auth plugin. On top of which we have game API, which seems to be working just fine. Right. Dot slash auth plugin. Okay, resolve. That is the way to go. Create game plugin. Cool. We don't even need status here, by the way. Just saying. Okay. Or API access.ts, which does not require any plugin at all. But this does. game create from game create. What is this? Game. So we don't need this. We don't need this. We already have this. We don't need any of this. We already have all of this. And we will not build this on top of auth plugin. We will build this not on top of auth plugin, but on top of game create plugin. Loose gates. What do we have? This game create plugin twice. Do we have it twice? No. Game object. Okay, remove all of this. This might not be in use. Const. There are three things which no, more than three things. We need user ID, username. WS is already here. Const user ID is ws dot data dot user ID, and const user name is ws dot data dot dot username time. Okay, we can get the whole thing in one go. Const user name, user ID, color, time, increment equals ws dot data dot user. Cool. Color enum. Nope, we can just say color. Substitute color, question mark, color enum with color globally. Current player. What is current player? We have to create an object of current player. Current player is of type game object. This is missing username and WS. Username is username and WS is yes. Cool. We have current player. We do not have current player because what does the open? Okay, so we have to update. Current user ID is also something that is required on current user ID is user ID. Cool, that is also fixed and removed. It requires 4 arguments. Remove. Check refactoring is a big thing to do. Now I just have to see some function return. Wait, what? What is it? C? No, this is JavaScript. TypeScript. Load. Declaring current player with a const and then reassigning it. Shit, yes. Uh, this is current player should not be a const. Like, shit, that was the only problem, I guess. Yes, current player is being reassigned because when I'm calling the run game function, I always want the current player to be white and the other player to be black, which is being decided in this piece of code here, depending on what is chosen by what player. If someone wants to play black, they would not be the current player. Slug is randomly generated URL and you need to use that so that user can create a game and share the link for others to join. Okay, like this. That is slug. Okay. Everything somehow checks out except this remove game. For remove game, give user ID. Yes, this was the problem, right? We didn't have the things which were required. But now we can have the things which are required like this. We have everything we might ever want. Colors, time, increment. Username is not required. Yeah, fine. Yep. All that refactoring for this single line. Cool. Okay. And probably I think this will break. Okay, it hasn't broken till now. That is a good thing. Let's connect, and user undefined wants to play a game as black with time this and increment 0. Okay, undefined. User is shit. Undefined. Why are we getting username from here when we have username directly? Let's say who wants to play undefined again wants to play a game, which means one of our plugin is not working correctly. If one of our plugin is not working correctly. Hi. Hi. Okay. User is added by this plugin. User dot res. Res is the result of this. Res. What is res? Res is username and user ID. So they do exist. So why don't we see them here? This will copy the thing. Maybe res goes out of scope and therefore we don't see anything there. User undefined extension. Okay. Don't we get the username here? Console.log des.user. Wait, it comes here like this. User, shit, yes. And shit. Console.log user. And we do get the user. Wait, no, we do not. Is auth plugin? No, auth plugin is not printing anything. So we are getting the user in the gameplay plugin. That is cool. And shit, I guess then we are changing the user. So that is not a very cool thing to do to someone. I think now we are okay. That would mean that, yeah, user 42 cool. We were overwriting user yo Baka. You calling me Baka? Hello. How is everything going on? Okay, this is working fine. And if we disconnect, we should also log a message when a user disconnects from the API or from the database. From the API, the user closes. Console.log with the username also. Backtick just does not work. But there is a key map. Shit, I forgot. A. Yes, this. username and close its. Yes, we are going to call the user its connection. And okay, and if we close the connection, user, valid point, very valid point. Yep, user 42 has closed its connection. Cool. Yep. Making web games. Yep. Trying to make web games, HTML or CSS. Lua is for the NeoVim configuration, and we have not even started with the front end. So right now it is just a JavaScript for the backend using library called Elysia. Yep, right now it is just JavaScript. Okay, cool, cool. Now finally, no shit, there are a lot of vulnerabilities. What if there is a game that is going on right now and one of the player just suicides? Or what if a player sends a WebSocket request to play a game and then they send another request to play another game? What then? If the type, from what currently is here, if the type of those games, that is, no shit, they might be able to play with each other. A single user might be able to play a game with itself or himself or herself. That is not good. So we also have to keep a list, a set of users who are already in a game. That would be like a straightforward way of doing the thing. Or what we can do is our whole object which we have in memory, which has a hierarchy and user ID. We can go through that big object and check for user ID, or we can not save some memory and have a set of all user IDs which are playing a game, which I think is better than than cheaping out on memory. Memory.ts. So apart from this game queue, we will have, and also, yeah, this list will contain all the users which are either waiting in a queue for a game or are actually playing a game right now. Static user queue, which is just going to be a user queue type. You might ask, what is user queue? Fair question. Export user queue with the correct spelling. User queue. Mm. User queue will just be a map type equals type of map where a set. What is the fastest set in JavaScript? Fastest set in this, in tennis. Wait, Lua, what will you use for front end? Yes, React. PSX. Yep. I'll be using React in JavaScript. And wait, shit, Kakashi, do you want to like collaborate on this project for front end or something? Modular from the Discord server is already collaborating, and well, he's like going to read every code. I will be writing the code, but he will be reading and validating if the code is correct or not. And if anyone wants to collaborate, it is welcome. The two people who are listening. Ha- um, Fastest average time Linear array, not good. Set is a native thing in JavaScript. We can use a set instead of a map. This is going to be a set of user IDs, which are going to be string. Does this work? It does. User queue, import user queue. Make this set. I think we cannot give memory in for a static thing in class. We cannot. Shit. Yep. Seems like so we cannot give memory to a static object. Is missing the following properties. Uh, in can we initialize? Wait, we are giving memory to a static object here also. Should not be any problem. I can also read. Okay, that is good. Oh, I got even better idea. I can do beta testing. What is beta like? Beta testing. You will be testing this for beta, whatever that means. In JS can be can we initialize? We can initialize memory in a static data type inside a class. But why are we not able to do this here? What is this error? I'm missing from the following properties. Uh, Set is string. This the type of instance of set that is a variable that holds collection of strings like this. Yep, type of string. This refers to static side of the set class itself, the constructor function, the thing you use with new. The static side of a class in JavaScript inherently has static properties like prototype, which an object instance does not have. You're likely assigning a set instance to a variable property. There is a subtle difference. Okay. Yes, this is what I did. This is not what we should do. Okay, so in that case, now we are good. Yeah, good. A real human being. Is game. Okay, so now we have another object that we have to keep track of. Is game, add game. When we add game, we will add the user ID also to this list. And before adding a game, we have to check that the user like does not already exist. This returns void. If we are adding a game, can the user already exist? No, we only share. We have to verify check. Yeah, okay. This thing can return error. Boolean return true. If the key does not exist, create it and then add the key. But even before anything like this, have a static function. It has to do with user static is user. This takes in user ID, which is a string and returns a boolean value. And if this dot user q dot has user return this dot user q dot has user ID. Just that, and add game before adding game. If is if this dot is user with this user if the user already exists, then return false. Otherwise, add the user and return true, and also this dot user dot add user ID. Get game. When we get game, return this. Ah, shit. When we get game, we have to remove the game also. Remove game is a separate function. So when we get game, we will call this dot remove game, which does not return right now anything, but should return the game itself. Const game, no, user game object is this one game q for this color for this time key dot values dot next dot value values as a function dot next dot value does not exist on type because next is also a function, right? And after this we will delete this from game q this dot remove game which game user game object dot we don't have user ID. We do not have user ID, which is messed up. Okay. Oh, okay, no problem. SPWT type of script you're using right now. Should SPW, that is some code language I do not understand. My monkey brain would be better if you could increase font size a little. Okay, thank you. Is this okay? Oh, this is okay. And if it's not, we can just tell again. Okay, we have to remove game, but to remove game, we have to know the user ID of the game that we are trying to remove, which is and when we do remove the game, we will also remove the user. Or should we leave that up to the caller? We should remove the user right now. User key remove delete user ID. We do not know the user ID of this user, and if we do not know the user ID, or we do know the user ID. We do know the user ID. Remove user game object dot no, since we did values here, shit. So we will do keys and dot next dot value. This will give us the value of the key. This will give us the value of the key. Game object, or we can say user ID, get game as user ID of the player whose game we are getting right now. This is not the user ID, but this is the user ID. Shit. This is the user ID. Is this a function? No. This is the user ID. So we have the user ID. Now we also need the name. Game object is dot game color with this time key. With this object is possibly undefined. It is no. It is not undefined. If the object is undefined, we are already throwing error here. Since we are not manually checking, TypeScript does not know. Wait, I think we can even do here like ignore or something like that. Decorators are not available here. I think it is a comment, maybe, but it is not good practice to add ignore statements in TypeScript. Object is possibly undefined. It is not undefined. Game object map. Now, if game uh, in game object map is not equal to undefined, then get the game object, which will be game object map with the key user ID, and user ID might be undefined. It is not undefined. We are getting it here. Keys might not exist. Well, user ID should exist. Now, my phone is going to die. It's cool. Cool, like, of course. What type of script you are using right now? Script, TypeScript. I don't understand the question. TypeScript, undefined. User ID is undefined. Game object, yeah. How is this is still undefined? Dot keys, dot next, dot value. If this exists, if user ID, then use user ID. Otherwise, use it implicitly has type any shit. If this is not equal to and element implicitly has type any. String cannot has no index image. Did you mean to call game object dot yes? Shit was the problem till now. Argument of type string or undefined string. Game object, get the game object. Um, this part will always run because we are already checking here if the game does exist. Okay, only after checking if the game does exist, what do we do? We see game object map. This dot game queue time key. And how do we add mutex? We do not add mutex in JavaScript because JavaScript is single threaded. Yep. Return this dot game dot color. No. After getting the game object, we have to remove user ID. This dot user q dot delete user ID. I didn't define shit. The user ID equals this and user ID equals user ID is now is something. Get the game object, and after deleting the user, you have to delete the game. Remove game, which takes in user ID, color, time, increment, and return the game object. That is called refactoring. Otherwise, if that does not work, then throw game not found error. Game object. User game object is nothing. Game object. Shit, now this thing does not have user ID. It only has username and US. Let's say it also has user ID. There is redundancy, but that is fine. We can name this as white and this as black. And also user IDs. White dot user ID and black dot user. There are some errors in here. Where even is this file? Delete this. Server is running, and if we establish a connection, user wants to play a match. Disconnect. User has closed the connection, and if we connect again, cool. Now, so that is a lot of refactoring and tiring, but anyways, how long? It has only been 2 hours. Okay, that is messed up. Run game, and now also before beginning the game, we have to check that a single user cannot start multiple games at the same time. for which here we will check data dot user ID, data dot is user with user ID. If the user is already playing a game and she is sending another request to start a new game, then that is a bit messed up and we will send error. Can we send error? Always does not exist. That is nothing else exists. No, we'll close the connection. No, shit. This should exist on create game plugin. Right. This part checking if the user is trying to make two connections should exist on this plugin. Therefore, we will not establish a connection ever with this kind of person. Okay, after verifying everything, we will also verify if data dot is user with user ID. If the user is already playing a game, then we will throw it. So we will throw a new error. You all have a game going on. Relax. Okay, so a single user cannot make two games. And are there any other problems which might exist before starting a game? I think not. A single user cannot have multiple connections. Yes, that is fixed. And if a connection closes before a game starts, that also is handled. That is cool. That is cool. And start game. Yeah. Paused, remove. What happens if the game does not exist? The game that we are trying to remove, it does not exist. Dot delete. Delete the user ID if game not found should not be thrown. Error should not be thrown. If the game does not exist, then it does not exist. We start a game. Start a game. If we start a game, we do not start a game. It seems. I think the cookie might have expired. Maybe. Should if we log in again. Cool. We have a key. It has PW at the end. Connect. Okay. We are able to connect. Wants to play as random and game this. Okay. And if we were to try to establish a new game with this user, we should get an error. We should not be able to connect this new connection. Yep. And what is the error that we get? Internal server error. Why do we get internal server error? That does not make sense. Disconnect. User has closed its connection. Connect. We are able to connect. But why do we get internal server error here? Disconnect here and connect from here. We are able to connect. We are not able to make a new connection, which is fine, but why are we getting internal server error? That should not be there. This game API plugin, this is throwing error on top of auth plugin, which is on top of error plugin, and error plugin on error returns this. Status score 400. Response headers, content length 20, what was sent, but let's ask ChatGPT. I am using on error number in Elysia for a WebSocket connection, and on the client side I am not getting the error and status code which I have given to on error. I am getting 500 error code. This is expected behavior. You are mixing HTTP semantics with WebSocket semantics. They are not the same thing. First, what actually happens in a WebSocket connection? HTTP handshake is made. Client sends HTTP request with upgrade WebSocket server either responds with 101 switching protocols or rejects it with this. After the upgrade, no more HTTP. Why you are seeing 500 in Elysia if an error is thrown during a WebSocket handling and not properly handled in the WS lifecycle. Elysia treats it as an unhandled exception, responding with error 500 important on error does not work for WebSocket error. Okay, so how to properly reject a WebSocket connection? If you want to reject it during a handshake, for example, invalid headers, you must reject before the upgrade happens. You have to give before handle inside this switch. But we would like this before handle. No, shit. Okay, we would like this before handle to be present for multiple WebSocket connections. I have plugins with dot resolve method define with no error in case of rejection, which is handled by or error. How can I make plugins for WS? Now we are at the real issue. You built HTTP validate throw an error caught this, then you accept those plugins to a WebSocket connection and it breaks. Why? Because WebSocket is not equal to a HTTP lifecycle. The core problem, your plugin uses dot resolve that works for HTTP, but resolve handler on error HTTP response. But for WebSocket, the flow is HTTP handshake upgrade WS open message handler. Once upgrade happens, there is no HTTP response anymore. Throwing inside resolve during WS lifecycle may not behave like HTTP and if resolve, but we are using resolve before an WS connection is established. Elijah falls back to 500. Important distinction. There are two phases in WebSocket. Yep, before the upgrade, HTTP phase in which we can send the error. Set status, return response, prevent upgrade. After that thing, you can only send WS MAC and close the connection. So how do you make WS plugin? WebSocket plugin. You don't reuse HTTP plugin directly. You make a WebSocket specific plugin dot resolve correct pattern for instead of this you create a plugin that uses before handle. Yes. Okay, instead of resolve we have to use before handle. That is the problem. We do not want to use before handle. We want to use dot resolve because that gives type safety. Shit. Before handle and then resolve, but again we are doing the same thing twice. Here we parsed the header and here we are also getting the header again, the same thing, which might not exist. Okay, what if I change my plugin to use on before handle instead of using resolve? I get problem. um, I don't get type benefits. I could don't get type benefits. Yep. In which case I would have to use something like this, that is using resolve after before handle, which again is redundancy. Brutal truth. Excellent. Now we are at the real tension. You want early rejection HTTP semantics, but you also want type inference from resolve. Two life in different phases, and this is shit Elysia thing. Why you lose types with before handle? Before handle can return a response, can stop execution, does not augment context types. Resolve yes, this does not augment context types. Resolve does augment context type, cannot safely control HTTP response flow in WS. So when you move validation into before handle, TypeScript has no idea that your headers are now validated. That is expected. The correct pattern. You split the responsibilities, which is the original thing which was happening. Narrow in resolve. But this cannot happen. Store parsed is a result in a symbol safe place. I don't think we can do this. We cannot do this. We cannot do this in type. We cannot do this in TypeScript because we cannot alter the headers which we have got from the client. We cannot handle the you are right. Mutating errors even as any is type and save architecturally wrong. The real constraint every early rejection we have to use on before handle. I think maybe we can use on before handle. We can make separate plugins and the redundancy would be only at one place. Yep, the redundancy would only be at one place game API plugins. Also, don't throw error. We can give the error from here directly. Here, user status. Wait, how are we getting user here? User does exist somehow. Read only because of the auth plugin. Yes, cool, makes sense. Status 400 and return this whole thing. Error is true. And in here also status 400 and return. Go there, line copy, line delete, cool. And one more thing, yep. Error is going to be true. And 16, do not return this thing, but here also status 400 and return error is true and message is this. Return user. Yep, do not return this. Dot resolve takes address. Delete copy. We won't have any like error correction thing here. Error checking thing because we have already checked user, and user is, by the way, not used. Yeah, user is not used. User is used here. Start user ID and at the end return this whole thing. This should be working here. So if we make a connection and disconnect, we do get user disconnected. And if we copy this whole thing, pw copy connect, and if you make a connection by the same user again, we get error. We get error here. 200 okay is messed up. Unexpected server response. What did the server say? Authorization. This was the thing that was sent requested. Response headers is this, but what is the response body? Handshake details. The error is because of this part probably. User with trying to start a new game while the last one is going on. What a messed up person. And here, wrong. Start a connection. Okay, cool. And start a connection. We are not able. Is trying to make TRY ping to make a status. We did say that the status is 400. This is on before. This is being caught in on before. So set dot status not callable. If we give shit, why don't we get status error here? I am returning error from on handle in a plugin for web socket, and it is giving error, but the client ad is not getting the message. It is getting 200 status even though I sent 400. The client is getting, even though you sent this, that means the WebSocket upgrade already succeeded. No, it did not. Once upgrade succeeded, HTTP response codes are irrelevant. The browser will not expose them. Critically, the browser sends HTTP request. If the server replies 101 switching protocol, then the upgrade happens. If anything else like this, the connection fails. But here is the key: the WebSocket API does not expose the HTTP body or status on failure. You only get ws dot. Okay, is that why the body is not here? Connection with this. So what was the original response sent? That is a bit sad. But this is happening before the connection is established. So there should not be any problem. But there is. Happen. It is this chat GPT's fault. Chat GPT does not know what it is saying. This is happening inside of Jim on essentials. Let's see. WebSocket. hgs.com. Docs. WebSocket. Socket handler. Reject web socket connection on Elysia. Yeah, on Elysia. How to reject WebSocket connection on Elysia with something like this. Macro with token true. Apply the macro to this route with token macro. Async key. Oh, returning a status code automatically rejects the handshake. Okay, this is a cool thing. We can define macros which we can conditionally add to routes directly. No, we don't actually need this right now. So, okay, let's say we delete this part from here and return status from here. Are we good now? This connection works, but this one does not work. Okay, shit. We can work with what we had before. Yep. Here we can have resolve instead of returning that. We will return this, but can we send the message? How do we set the message, error message? We do not. We just set this status return. Okay. Start a connection. That is fine. Disconnect. User started a connection. User this closed their connection. Start connection again. Start connection from the same ID again, and we are getting error. And we are here. Yeah, this is for the second connection that we made from the first user, but this one got rejected with 400 bad request. That is cool. And also we can log console log user on user name. Try to establish uh second game. You cannot play a second game. And also let's have some more logs. User need this. Try to give an invalid well a log. Yes, I want to ask a question about logs. Here, success. Press. Let's have another log here. This is the log. User tried to give an invalid color. Nope. Use this is giving invalid headers for a view. Here I have logs before every error. Is it the standard practice to log things when and when a user logs in and is created or anything happens? I don't know. Is it standard? 2 or 30 minutes? Yep, 30 more minutes. Yes, but not like this logging everything manually with the console.log inside. Business logic is not a standard practice in production. It works during development. It does not scale. Let's break this property down about your current pattern, you are doing this. Yep, that is not wrong, but it mixes validation logic, business logic, logging, HTTP request response all in one place. That becomes messy fast. That is what is standard practice: standardized, centralized, structured, level-based, context, not a random console.log, calls scattered everywhere. What should be logged? You generally log authentication events, login, 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 suspicious behavior, invalid stamps, scams. What should not be logged? Excessively every minor validation feature, normal user mistakes, routine bad input. If users can trigger log easily, you create. Makes sense. Log spam. Oh, yeah. I think now we can finally start working on the main function, game logic. That's it. This user wants to play a game, and let's have another user. This user is user 37. What about user 42? User 42 would also like to play a game. User 37 connected. User 42 connect. They have started a game. No, they have not started a game because the increment is different for this one. For this one, the increment is 0. For this one, the increment is 1. So disconnect. If we change the increment here to 1, they should be able to play a game. Yep, starting a game between this as white and this as black. And we have some random, yes, ID, user ID 20 and 18. Yep. But if we disconnect both of them and we say that both the player want to play as black, this one wants to play as black and this one also wants to play as black. Connect, connect. Yep. They just want to play as black, so they are not able to play with each other. But if one of them stops their connection, 42 stopped their connection, and let's say 42 wants to play as a random player, which would be 2. Yep. Now 42 wants to play as random, and there is a match with between 43 between user 37 who wanted to play as black and 42 who wants to play as random. That is good. We are able to start a game. Now the game itself. Shit. White. So when a game starts, we need to send, we need to tell both the users, black and white, that the game has started. Right. Yep. We need to tell both the players that the game has started. So white dot Douglas, let's say cons white socket is white dot ws, and fonts black south base, black dot ws. We need to tell both of them that game has started. White socket dot send start, and also the color, if any. Color dot white, but we cannot send it like this. Yes, shit. And we can only send text. Okay, we will have a format here. Wait, we'll send anything. What is expected by this? Sends a message to the client. What does it take? Data unknown. Data can be anything. Compress. Yes, compress the data. The data to send. Shit, we can send anything. So that is cool. Color is not white. Start true. Color white. Error, no error. Same thing with the white player, the black player. The black player will know that they are black. Start a game. You also start a game, and yes, we do get a message here. Game start color is 0. Game start color is 1. Cool. It is like actually working now. After starting, we will also have what the time was. Const start time is new date of now. Console.log start time, start connection between this and add time this. Cool, cool. Okay, there are two WebSockets which are working together. Both the WebSockets know. Now the server has to keep listening for moves, and the moves will be validated. And yeah, 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 okay. And let move equals, we will have an enum common. We can just say color white is. Uh, let let move or let whose chance is it equals color dot white. Initially it is white, and we also have to have a representation of the whole board game. I will go to the washroom and I will be right back in 1 minute. And I'm back. Shit. And there is a rule that I have to stream for at least 3 hours and 15 minutes. Fif- 17 minutes are remaining right now. So I cannot end the stream, but I do not want to begin with this part because this is a whole major part and I want to do this in maybe a single sitting. So what remains right now is okay. In 17 minutes, I can work on a progress report. Yeah, backend log.md. But first, status. Okay, this untracked files plugins request parsing.ts. Wait, I think we are not using that. I don't think. Yeah, we are legit not using this. Request parsing. Was the server working? Server is start a game between this dude and this dude and the server is working. Cool. Fix and yeah, refactoring game object, refactoring game object, and fixing loops in the game connection. That makes that sums it up. How many lines was this? It's just like yeah. And now a progress report is needed. Refactoring. Shit, this was not much, but this felt like a lot of lines. But okay, this was not much. A progress report. Backend. Day 9, no, not day by day. Uh, right now, server has a way for users to authenticate themselves and to create accounts and login and login. We are also Alicia. There is also a Alicia plugin for authenticated routes and another plugin for the socket connection. The web socket connection for a single game for the WebSocket connection between the user and the server is pretty cool. It sends back error if proper error is not provided, and also uh, loopholes like uh, single user starting multiple games at the same time cannot happen, and a single user cannot create multiple games at the same time. That cannot happen. And when a user loses their connection in waiting queue, the list of connections is updated. Cool, cool. Now tasks. Write a example that handles a game in memory and then removes it, and then removes it. Nah, and then stores it. When the game ends. Okay. What is the status? Yo, status is cool. Look at this. API helper. There is a helper function called this run game. This run game takes a game object for white, and game object just contains a few things like user ID, username, and a WebSocket object for communicating with the user. So this function gets an object, game object for white, for black, the time for which the game should last, and the increment. And this should handle the game. This tells white and black what are their colors, and yeah, that the game has started. And then there is this chance variable which will update, like it will keep switching from white to black to white to black. And yes, the now the game logic. But like we were here a few days ago also, the main thing that has happened is refactoring. There were problems like a single user was able to create multiple connections. That is wrong. That is fixed now. And also, if a user has a connection and the user is in the queue, but they stop their connection, then they must be removed from the queue. That is also added. And also, what is a quick way to remove people from the queue? Because earlier the queue was a simple array, and removing something takes n time, log n time in a array. So the data structure was updated here. The data structure was updated to not be a array, but rather a map. A map where the key is going to be a string and a hash map, and the object, the value is going to be a game object. So, yep, refactoring the C code of my VM yesterday. Okay, gets done. And of course, I was feeling sleepy, so I asked Claude to split it across files. You use AI. Why are you working on right now? Right now, chess, chess, and we can actually start working on the actual game logic, sending and receiving moves. And let me show you something. I start the server. Shit. I start the server. Server is started, and we have this user who wants to play as two. Two means random color. Let's say that this user wants to play as white. One means white color, zero means black. So this person wants to play as black, white. Connection started here. User 42 wants to play a game as white. One is white with time as 600 and increment 1 second increment and 600 second time, which is 10 minutes. And we have another user who wants to play as black. Now, if this was this user, even though they have the same time and increment, if this user also wants to play as white, they won't be able to play amongst themselves. Let's see. Yep, they are not playing. A game has not started. They are both added to the list. Now, let's say this person changes their mind. Yep, they did. 47 user 37 has closed its connection. And yes, a user is being referred to by the pronoun it. And let's say they want to play as a random player. And also, if we give some color which is outside the range, we won't be able to make the error. Shit, we got error, but that is messed up. The connection is still going on. Wants to play game as an okay. There is a bug. There is a bug which will be fixed. There is a bug which will be fixed. Wait, shit. Okay. Wait, are you modular? Are you modular? Like, are you in the Discord? And is your name in Discord modular? Shit. Okay. 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 Now at least I know your name. And Claude asked me if I wanted to write the logic to read the file and create the execute command. Lol, it made the code just so unnecessarily long. Like, why are you using? Like you said, I should not use. No, I will be stalking your shit. And you said I should not use Zord and write the implementation on by myself. Why are you using AI? Complex. I designed the whole code thinking about modularity. Yep, there is a guy named Modular in the chat so that I can change some part of the code, but I'm just fucked it all up. Yeah, you are doing JavaScript. I think it depends on what your AI is using. Wait, AI is like pretty cool if if you know what you're looking for. Like here, I want I wanted to ask, like about log. Is this the industry standard for logging stuff? And here, yeah, a specific question. Specific question. AI is cool for those. And that was for testing. I of course discarded that. I had a stroke trying to understand what it is. Shit. Okay, I hope you are okay. Like shit, so many people are getting sick. Like the new AI agent just hides all the logic from you, make me scared for my future. Yeah, under stroke trying to understand what the fuck it was trying. Or it removed my whole original logic. It fucked up my mind even more. Said okay, like Tika Dolo. I think that might fix you, or maybe she can fix you. I don't know. But yeah, shit, there is an error there. Why was there no error? Game API plugin. Return status 400. This should be working. This error is true. Color. Also not loud. We are not getting color error. We are directly game create plugin, game create plugin. How are we able to do this? And user is undefined. User undefined wants to play. User is not undefined. Color is undefined, which makes sense because the color is wrong. As create game and number. Console.now. Color console.now. Color enum, which exists later. 1212. Wow, shit, that is stupid. Error. Yep. Cool. We are not able to create a connection with invalid color. Okay, let's say we have this user who wants to play as white, and this other user who also wants to play as white. Yep, they are not playing a game amongst themselves because of the color difference. But if this user changes their mind, closed connection 37, and now wants to play as a random person. So now they closed their connection and then they said that they want to play as random, and then we started a game between user 42 as white and user 37 as black. So that is pretty cool. Means oh shit, you have two broken hearts even though Archit is having the stroke. Insanely broken. I want. I mean, I call my GF, okay, to calm me down after that. Okay, you call your GF after your code does not work. And I was like, just forget, and I will continue it from today. Pray for me. Okay, I will pray for you. I will pray for you. Everything should work out. Any problem with that 150K? Magic numbers are not here. Okay, and the 1 and 2, it is not magic number because here, mm, yeah, color is a enum. So wherever we are using in the code, when we are using color, we are using color dot black, color dot white, and color dot random. And this enum is inside this common folder. So you go to common, there is interfaces, and there is enum. So that this same enum will be used by the front end. So front end also knows what color is what. Addressing enums as members as one. Yep, it checks out. And so we can start a game now. We have to write the game logic and cool. And I would like to end the stream now. Before ending, let's do a single wordle. We can only do a single wordle because there is only one wordle in a single day. That is Malawi. Shit. Okay. Okay. Malawi. Uh, Mozambique. Nairobi. Nairobi. Kenya. Tanzania. Tanzania. And this would be Zimbabwe. I think. Zambia. Zambia. Okay, that was like actually a fluke. Lilongwe. Capital. I don't know where it is. Fluke. Map. This is not it. Yeah, this is it. Malawi. And which of these facts is true about Malawi? Top 20 in population. Maybe it is in Africa, maybe. Top 20 in, and maybe not in annual tourist because it is in Africa. Member of Commonwealth. I don't think so. Europe. Oh shit. What is Commonwealth? I don't know. Commonwealth of Nations. Okay, Malawi is the India is also a part of Commonwealth. Okay. Canada is also a part of Commonwealth. Commonwealth of Nations, often referred to as the British Commonwealth or simply the Commonwealth, is an international association of 56 member states, the vast majority of which are former territories of its predecessors, the British empires. Okay. Lake Malawi is famous among aquarium enthusiasts for its hundreds of species of brightly colored fish. But which fish? Sick child fish. No, not chess. Group of four. Yep, it seems so. Uh, no, I will not use them. On the front end, we will have the enum to use. After independence, Malawi was ruled as a one-party state under President Hastings Banda. Hastings is sounds familiar. Banda for roughly dash decades before multiplying multi-party. Wait, if there is a one-party rule, then what even is the rule? How many decades? I don't know. 3 decades. Okay. Famous place in Malawi. Maybe this. Shit. It is a lake. Mumbo Island. Shit. It is a island. It seems. Mumbo Island. National emblem of Malawi. Sun with red spikes. This is Egypt. Maybe this. No. This one. Shit. Okay, I guess this is the last chance. Shit. This one. unity and freedom. And now the languages, spoken languages, English. Okay, even though they have unity and freedom written on their emblem, they don't speak English. Malay, Afrikaans, nope. Some language, Chewa and Lom, nahi. Just random guesses. GDP per capita. India's is 2000 something, 2000, 2.6K, 2.67K. This lower than India. Among Malawi and its neighbors, which has the highest GDP per capita. Tanzania, I think Zambia. Okay, Mozambique has the third one. Malawi is at the lowest. Zambia is fine. Population of Malawi. It is not dense. 21 million. That is cool. What is the currency? This is not. Maybe it is shared. Kwacha. This is a new round. Can you organize the four? Okay, the round is same, but they have changed the interface. Really long way. Just random guesses. Only two are correct, and these two are wrong. Okay. And can you guess size of Malawi? Okay, this we should be able to do. Malawi is not very big. Ireland, around the size of Ireland would be good enough, but smaller than Ireland or bigger than Ireland. I think shit, this is long. This is long, so that increases the area. Any cases. Held some games together and keep high commissions, their delegations. Okay, they held some games together and keep high commissions. Their delegates are called high commissions instead of the universal term. Shit. Okay, like shit, you know quite a bit and do not give up. I think smaller than Ireland, bigger around. Okay, shit, bigger than Ireland. 1880, and that was the last round. Is quite a lot bigger than Ireland. That is called doxing. Here, this is quite big. Malawi and Ireland. Yeah, Ireland is very small compared to that. Okay, and that would be the end of today's stream. And thank you for being here. Bye. We'll meet tomorrow.